today and will be effective for 30 days unless it's renewed. The governor says she knows people will disagree with certain portions.
It has been happening everywhere all the time because you, Congress, have done nothing to prevent it.
From 2017 to 2021, 143 children were killed by guns.
Here's the amount of gun violence that has happened. I think we're reaching a tipping point where we're about to hit desensitization to gun violence.
But she and the others at the table said despite their differences, they're committed to working together.
We have a bunch of resources that we can utilize to make sure that we start making a dent.
You won't believe what the governor of New Mexico just said on CNN. Any thoughts and hopes that gun controllers had that maybe she would revoke this order and scale back the draconian gun control effort that she just implemented in New Mexico, which makes them look bad and jeopardizes gun control nationwide, were unfounded. Public opinion on gun control in the U.S. According to a recent CNN poll done by SSRS, the majority of Americans still believe that gun control rules should be generally stronger. The study also indicates that there is widespread support for banning the purchase of any form of gun by anyone under the age of 21. At the same time, there are still significant disparities in opinion across ideological and demographic lines regarding how the availability of guns impacts public safety in the country. Little has changed since a survey conducted last summer following a mass slaying at an elementary school in Uvalde, Texas. Overall, 64% support tougher gun control legislation, while 36% reject them. 36% of Americans believe that having guns makes public spaces less safe. 32% believe that allowing gun owners to carry their weapons in public make those spaces safer, and the remaining 42% believe that it has no bearing on safety. A little more than half of the populace, 54%, asserts that having stronger gun control regulations will lessen the number of gun-related fatalities in the nation. In the wake of high-profile mass slayings, public support for tougher gun control regulations has a tendency to increase. But as these tragedies have become more frequent, this increased support may now be more enduring. Since the Parkland, Florida high school massacre in 2018, every poll that has asked the subject has found a majority in favor of stricter gun controls, with 60% or more preferring such measures.
Gun violence does not discriminate. It happens everywhere and all the time.
Here's the amount of gun violence that has happened. I think we're reaching a tipping point where we're about to hit desensitization to gun violence.
It has been happening everywhere all the time because you, Congress, have done nothing to prevent it.
The strength of opinions has also changed over the past 10 years, continuously and significantly favoring those who support gun regulation. Strong support for stronger gun legislation outweighed strong opposition in CNN polls from 2013 to 2017 by an average margin of about 5 percentage points. That advantage has increased to an average of 30 points in the years since the Parkland incident. According to the most recent survey, 46% of the general public has strong support for gun control regulations, while 20% have strong opposition. Democrats are more likely than Republicans to have strongly held opinions. 80% of Democrats say they strongly support tighter laws, almost double the 42% of Republicans who say the same. In general, opinions on establishing tougher gun control measures are extremely divided. Compared to 36% of Republicans, a majority of Democrats and independents support new limitations. Contrarily, there isn't much of an age gap, with 67% of people under 45 and 62% of people over 45 supporting it. Gun ownership also creates a rift in opinions. 45% of those who live in households with weapons support stricter rules, compared to 76% of people who don't. Americans who live in households where guns are present are more than twice as likely to believe that permitting gun owners to carry their weapons in public areas would boost public safety. Republican guys are notable for their viewpoints as well. Just under half of Republican women, 1/3 or less of Democrats or independents of any gender, and over 3/4, or 72%, say they believe that weapons make public areas safer. Furthermore, compared to 55% of Republican women and less than half of all other groups, 73% of Republican men reject tighter gun control measures. The majority of Americans, 58%, believe that the government can take steps to effectively prevent mass slayings, as opposed to 42% who believe that slayings will occur regardless of the measures taken by the government. Less than 1/3 of Democrats and those under the age of 45 hold the same views, whereas 66% of Republicans and 51% of individuals over the age of 45 believe that mass slayings are unavoidable. Younger Republicans and independents are substantially more optimistic about the possibility of government action than their older counterparts, whereas there is essentially no difference between older and younger Democrats. Poor ratings are given to the White House for its approach on gun control. President Joe Biden's handling of the situation has earned just 30% of American support, a decline of 7 points from March and a considerable decline from his current 40% overall job approval rating. A proposal to ban some persons from owning weapons, such as felons who have been convicted of crimes or those with mental health issues, has 94% public support, up 7 points from 2018. A proposal to bar those under 21 from purchasing any kind of firearms has 80% support, up 9 points from 5 years ago. A slightly smaller 59% of Americans support a ban on the production, sale, and possession of guns like the AR-15 that can shoot in semi-automatic fire. This percentage is up 10% from the previous year. Most Democrats support a ban on semi-automatic firearms, while the majority of Republicans oppose it. The other two measures have bipartisan support, with 66% of Republicans, 94% of Democrats, and 80% of independents approving a ban on the sale of firearms to individuals under the age of 21. More than 90% of Democrats, independents, and Republicans agree that those with mental health issues and convicts should not be allowed to buy guns. The CNN poll was conducted by SSRS between May 17 and 20 among 1,227 randomly selected respondents from around the country who were selected from a probability-based panel. Online or over the phone with a live interviewer, surveys were both administered. Results among the entire sample have a plus or minus 3.7 point margin of sampling error. It is higher for subgroups. Gun violence plan. Is it preferable to do nothing than to take action that many people are confident the courts will reject? Even gun control activists claim that the Democratic governor of New Mexico's novel proposal to reduce gun violence for the upcoming month is unlawful. Certain locations are affected by public health emergencies. The governor, Michelle Grisham, utilized her state's public health statutes to impose a 30-day moratorium on the public carrying of hidden or openly carried weapons in regions with heightened gun violence, after declaring twin public health crises related to gun violence and drug misuse. Security personnel and police officers are exempt from the directive.
Today and will be effective for 30 days unless it's renewed. The governor says she knows people will disagree with certain portions.
Either openly or concealed within cities or counties.
The injunction would be applicable in Albuquerque and the adjacent Bernalillo County, which are the regions most impacted by the state's problem with significantly higher than average gun violence. The Supreme Court established new guidelines for gun laws. The issue is that Grisham's order would appear to contravene the U.S. Supreme Court's increasingly liberal interpretation of the Second Amendment, which even some gun control supporters are bringing up. In actuality, gun rights activists' use of a 2022 Supreme Judicial case to demand a thorough reevaluation of a variety of state gun control legislation is what has caused the recent judicial activity. Background checks and a so-called red flag statute are among the laws that gun safety activists fight for in New Mexico. However, it does not mandate waiting periods for purchasing firearms, and anyone over the age of 19 is allowed to carry a pistol in public areas with impunity. Time wastage. Sheriff John Allen of Bernalillo County stated on CNN that he will not carry out the directive to curtail that privilege. I'm trying to find ways to stop gun violence without being overshadowed by a court order that won't be enforced. I'm telling you right now, our time would be wasted, Allen declared. In her response, Grisham stressed the transitory nature of the order and its focus on carrying firearms in public places, while acknowledging that no tickets had yet been issued for violations. She reasoned that if firearms limitations like background checks are legal, then her interim ban should be as well. Even some proponents of gun control have questioned her logic. David Hogg, a Parklands school slaying survivor and co-founder of the gun control organization March for Our Lives, stated on social media that he supports gun safety, but that there is no exception to the U.S. Constitution for a state public health emergency. The governor's directive has already been challenged in a number of lawsuits. During her interview on CNN this morning, Grisham informed Poppy Harlow of CNN that the issue of gun violence is significant enough to call into question common beliefs and legal rulings about the Second Amendment.
The Second Amendment to the United States Constitution, Mr. President, as you well know,
From 2017 to 2021, 143 children were killed by guns.
Even though finding effective measures to keep everyone safe is becoming more difficult, Grisham added, "That doesn't mean I shouldn't do them." Numerous tragedies. Grisham listed a number of particular instances in his declaration of the public health emergency, such as the fact that New Mexico has a significantly greater rate of gun violence than the rest of the nation. She also stated, "Last Wednesday in Albuquerque, an 11-year-old kid was shot and died after what appeared to have been a road rage incident. On July 28, a 13-year-old girl was shot and died. According to authorities, the slayer was 14 years old. On August 13, a 5-year-old daughter was slain while she slept in a living room." Additionally, Grisham mentioned the 6 demise mass slayings that occurred in May in Farmington and Red River. Lessening the number of guns on the streets makes everyone safer, the evidence consistently shows, she added, "And I'm not only focused on the rights the NRA believes I should be, but rather on everyone's constitutional rights." Does the governor believe that this is legal? Harlow questioned Grisham about her conviction that the ban on openly carrying firearms is legal. "Well, we'll see," the governor remarked. "If I didn't believe I had the right, I wouldn't do it. I am allowed to." Concentrate on the incorrect gun owners? The Reload is a news website that specializes in reporting on firearms, and it was founded by Stephen Gutowski. He noted to CNN's Jake Tapper that many gun crimes may not be committed by those with permits. "The evidence points the other way generally," Gutowski said, assuring that permit holders commit crimes at lower rates than the general population in jurisdictions that make crime statistics public. "That makes sense," he continued. "They are the ones that go through the background check and obtain the permission in the first place, so I believe that is one of the factors contributing to the widespread consensus that this is possibly not the best course of action." Whereabouts are you? Grisham voiced her displeasure with law enforcement during her interview on CNN when they claimed they would not enforce the ban. "Where are you, law enforcement? Is that my query to you?" she asked. "Where are you?" According to a CNN analysis at the time, Albuquerque was one of the big cities that set a record for endings in 2021. In 2022, it surpassed another record. The majority, 83% of the 76 homicides in Albuquerque so far this year, used firearms, according to data kept by the city's police department.
Gun deaths are the leading cause of death for children 1 to 19 in New Mexico.
Your right to own a gun can also be restricted.
When pressed by Harlow about what would happen after the 30-day break, or if the courts intervene as was predicted, Grisham responded that it was crucial to press the issue. "You're basically saying that you won't be responsible to protect the citizens of the state if you're not going to stand up for these kids and really test as hard as you can getting fewer guns and dealing with gun violence in a meaningful way," she added. Controversy surrounding New Mexico governor's emergency order on gun rights. In response to an increase in gun-related occurrences in Bernalillo County and Albuquerque, New Mexico, Governor Michelle Grisham has proclaimed a state of emergency and suspended certain Second Amendment rights. This extraordinary action has sparked a storm of criticism from some who believe it violates individuals' Second Amendment rights, while those who believe it is a vital step to safeguard the town from rising gun violence applaud it. Grisham argues that the rights of victims and their families should take precedence over those guaranteed by the Constitution. Prominent proponents for tighter gun control measures have voiced their disagreement with her choice, including David Hogg, Ted Lieu, and Ryan Bussey. As prominent members of the legal and law enforcement communities publicly reject the governor's decision and declare they will not follow the instruction because they believe it to be illegal, the controversy surrounding the matter grows. By abolishing qualified immunity for government agents, the 2021 New Mexico Civil Rights Act, which was signed into law by Governor Grisham, has caused a seismic shift in the legal framework guiding the activities of government agents. As was to be expected, a flood of new lawsuits has been filed in response to the enforcement of this firearms restriction. The National Association for Gun Rights is at the forefront of these efforts, having filed a lawsuit seeking a variety of remedies: summary judgment, declaratory judgment, a temporary injunction, and a permanent injunction. Their short briefs reveal an intense emphasis on the heart of the constitutional issue, underscoring the seriousness of the situation. In conclusion, Governor Grisham's move to temporarily suspend certain Second Amendment rights in response to rising gun violence has prompted discussion about the limits of individual liberties guaranteed by the Constitution. Some say it's an infringement on people's rights, but others say it's important to safeguard the community from the rising tide of gun violence. Suspending Second Amendment rights in the face of increasing gun violence is a difficult and controversial issue that demands an in-depth analysis of how nations may effectively safeguard their citizens without compromising on constitutional values. The outcome of this court case could have far-reaching implications for the future of gun rights and constitutional safeguards in the U.S. The decision will have far-reaching effects on the balance between individual liberty and community security, and not just for the persons directly affected by the ban. If the ban is not consistent with the Second Amendment's guarantee of the right to keep and bear arms, it could be challenged as a violation of that right and thus be struck down as unconstitutional. The burden of proof for justifying an executive officer's suspension of constitutional rights during a health emergency now rests with the governor. This change is very disturbing for some residents, especially in states that have no obvious historical precedent. But there are more recent historical precedents, especially in some progressive-leaning blue states, such as during COVID-19 epidemic from 2021 until the end of 2022. Taking stand. The National Association for Gun Rights has taken a strong stand in this matter by formally petitioning for a declaratory judgment that the ban on carrying weapons is unlawful as applied or on its face. Concerns have been raised about the lack of historical precedent in some regions and the initiative and resolve of advocacy groups like NAGR in challenging this decision through legal channels has been brought to light by the implementation of this official national gun ban. Advocates for Second Amendment rights face a larger issue, which is shown by the ongoing court dispute over the official national gun ban. The National Association for Gun Rights and other advocacy groups have taken a proactive approach in response to the official national gun ban controversy in New Mexico, sparking a huge court struggle. It's like a wildfire, and we need to put out the flames right away. Others, like David Hogg, Ted Lieu, and Ryan Bussey, as well as advocacy groups, have voiced concern and contributed to the legal struggle. This occurrence draws attention to a more systemic problem at the national level, namely that certain politicians put expediency and personal advantage ahead of policy substance. Alluding to a made-up 28th Amendment trivializes serious issues and raises concerns that some initiatives are being floated for political posturing rather than actual legislative progress, putting people's rights at risk. With anticipated future court hearings and judgments, developments in this case have generated considerable anticipation. The people of New Mexico, especially those in the Albuquerque area who have peacefully exercised their First Amendment rights, albeit there is a note of caution suggesting that even this privilege might be temporarily suspended if the governor deems it necessary. The group is a great place to learn about the intricacies of Washington state law around gun ownership. Bernalillo County Sheriff John Allen has added fuel to the fire by promising not to enforce the emergency weapons ban.
Openly acknowledged she expected fierce opposition to today's announcement, including from the law enforcement leaders,
and are likely not to agree with the totality of the first initial steps.
We have a bunch of resources that we can utilize to make sure that we start making a dent.
Sheriff Allen's objection stems from his belief that the order violates citizens' constitutional rights. Because of this, a wider discussion has emerged concerning the responsibility of law enforcement to carry out executive orders that may be seen as exceeding constitutional limits. Democratic Governor Michelle Grisham said she expected legal challenges after announcing the decree. She also said that criminals might not follow the order, highlighting the difficulty of reducing gun violence through presidential action. The American Civil Liberties Union, a renowned civil liberties organization, has objected to the governor's response to gun violence, claiming that it could lead to an overly aggressive approach in policing and could potentially infringe upon individuals' privacy. Leading Republican in the New Mexico Senate and a resident of Beelin, Greg Baca, has spoken out against the order, saying it violates the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding individuals. When asked again about his concerns for the safety of law officers in carrying out the emergency order, Sheriff John Allen expressed his concerns. He voiced his displeasure with the recent emergency order by New Mexico Governor Michelle Grisham to temporarily limit the ability to carry weapons in public settings, citing the importance of avoiding political violence and the severity of the current problem of violence. This emergency order has been issued because the metropolitan Albuquerque area has reached a certain threshold for its violent crime rate. The 30-day prohibition on carrying firearms in public places includes both open and concealed carry. Police officers and authorized security guards are exempt. In the event of a violation, a fine of up to $5,000 may be imposed. A homeowner may take a firearm to a private site, such as a gun range or store, so long as the firearm is unloaded and secured with a trigger lock or other mechanism that prohibits firing, as specified in the order. Sheriff Allen voiced his dismay and shock at the governor's abrupt plan announcement, saying that law enforcement officers had warned against it. He stressed the importance of turning his worries into action, such as calling for a special session of the state legislature to address the rising violence in Albuquerque. In the context of gun control measures, this incident highlights the nuanced difficulty of striking that balance. Legal challenges, public opinion, and political maneuvering are just a few of the issues that will shape the future of gun control arguments in New Mexico. The right to keep and bear arms, guaranteed by the Second Amendment, has been singled out by those who say the emergency legislation violates their constitutional rights. As cases progress through the legal system, the precedents established by the courts may affect how much power the executive branch has at times of perceived crisis. The public's perspective will be crucial in shaping future gun control arguments. Some members of the New Mexico community have voiced their approval of the governor's initiative to curb gun violence, while others have strongly objected to the order as an infringement on their constitutional rights. Given the range of perspectives, conversations on striking a fair balance between protecting the public and protecting individual liberty are likely to continue. Gun control discussions in New Mexico will proceed along a path determined by political factors. Republican legislators have voiced strong opinion to the governor's decision to enact the official national gun ban, viewing it as an abuse of power on the governor's part. The combination of public uproar and legal challenges could prompt additional political maneuvering, such as the introduction of legislation to change or repeal the emergency order. The future of gun control debates in New Mexico is at a crossroads that will be determined by a confluence of factors, including ongoing court fights, public opinion, and political dynamics. Gun control advocates overreach and backlash. We've consistently maintained that when proponents of gun control feel emboldened, they tend to push the boundaries, skirting the line in hopes of avoiding detection. In this particular case, Governor Grisham clearly crossed that line, making herself a symbol of unconstitutional actions. Her recent measures have not only drawn criticism from fellow Democrats, including David Hogg and congressional Democrats, but also from CNN. This situation has likely done more to harm the gun control cause than we could have achieved in a similar time frame. It underscores why we continue our daily efforts to shed light on their true intentions. During a CNN interview, the host confronted Governor Grisham with questions about the constitutionality of her actions. Specifically, they inquired about the compatibility of her measures with both the New Mexico state constitution and the U.S. Constitution, given her legal background. The governor responded by expressing her belief in her right to act, emphasizing public health goals and making a tangential reference to Supreme Court decisions regarding bodily autonomy. This diversion into the abortion debate seems unrelated to the gun control issue and the constitutional concerns raised. The governor's attempt to shift the conversation away from her controversial gun control measures towards a discussion of bodily autonomy and abortion rights was a clear departure from the topic at hand. It's worth noting that abortion rights are not constitutionally protected in any of the amendments. The interview continued, with the host pressing her on her stance, and this line of questioning further exposed the divide between gun control advocates and defenders of the Second Amendment. Governor's responses to constitutional concerns. During the CNN interview, Governor Michelle Grisham also faced questions regarding the potential violation of both the U.S. Constitution and the New Mexico State Constitution in her recent gun control measures. Article 2, Section 6 of the New Mexico Constitution explicitly protects citizens' right to keep and bear arms, stating that no law shall abridge this right. The governor responded by referencing her belief in her right to act, emphasizing the state's public health objectives and comparing her actions to existing gun control measures, including universal background checks, waiting periods, red flag laws, and prohibitions on straw purchases. She argued that these measures had not been deemed unconstitutional and were still in effect, implying that her actions should be evaluated similarly.
And others prompting the governor to put a public health order in place taking aim at gun violence.
But she and the others at the table said despite their differences, they're committed to working together.
I can invoke additional powers. No constitutional right.
The governor's responses reflected her determination to stand by her decision, despite constitutional concerns, and her confidence in the legal process to uphold her actions. However, her comparison of her recent gun control measures to existing laws highlighted the ongoing debate surrounding gun rights and the balance between public safety and individual liberties. That's all for this video, folks. See you next time.